Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full-on, your Fulham-centric football podcast. I'm your host, Ash Woolford. Joining me this week are my fellow host, AJ. How you doing, buddy?
Jolly good, jolly good. How's everyone?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. And Mozza, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, not bad myself. Thank you very much, boys.
It's a difficult week. It's not been a good one to be a Fulham fan, but we're here to do a couple of things. We're here to discuss the upcoming game with Newcastle on Saturday. Before we do that, we'll just have a quick conversation around the transfer window. We are filming this on Thursday night, obviously to come out on Friday morning. As of this moment, Fulham haven't signed a single player over this transfer window, which is slightly concerning. We found out today that Harry Wilson is going to be out for about 10 weeks with a stress fracture in his foot, leading us to need more players than we already felt that we needed before we even start signing people. The only player we've looked like we're going to sign is a 17-year-old from Man City who wouldn't be near the first team anyway as he come in. So let's talk about that quickly and how concerning that is. AJ, we've had conversations in the last couple of weeks about positions we know we need to strengthen in. Harry Wilson being injured and being confirmed to be out for a long time today just adds to that, obviously. What do you feel like really is a priority for us for the rest of the season if we have any sort of intention of trying to push into the Europa League?
Well, if we've still got that ambition, we needed to have done business 2.5 weeks ago, frankly. But if we are considering the premise of a ridiculously busy transfer window in terms of deadline day, we will need at least one more winger, one striker that actually brings fear into opposition, a right back. That can be a temporary loan, to be fair, once we've got Tete back, assuming that he signs a new deal. That'll be fine going into next year, assuming we get Europe. Left back cover is a requirement, but we could potentially do that in the summer, thanks to Robinson being forever fit, although touch woods and all of that stuff. What else do we probably need? Yeah, I think that probably puts us in good stead. But our main focus should be another winger, a striker, and potentially some right back cover with Kenny Tete being out. And to wrap up the issues we've got with existing expiring contracts in the summer, because I think we've got 6 players on our books or something like that, all whose contracts are due to expire in the summer, and that needs to be sorted long before the end of the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a bit of a concerning one at the moment when you think about what the squad might look like come, the beginning of next season. But talking about for now, it is a real concern. Mozza, how frustrating is it that we've waited? It's now the 30th of January. It'll be the 31st tomorrow when this comes out, and sorry, it'll be the 31st January tomorrow when this comes out, and we haven't even really had any clear links with anyone, let alone look like we're signing anyone. How frustrating is it?
Extremely frustrating. And we've seen this before, though, haven't we? It's classic Tony Khan business, in my opinion. I don't know if he's hanging on until the very end to do some deadline day deals. Not that we've really seen much of that before in years gone by. You might have to remind me, and I'm looking at AJ here. Last season's January transfer window, I think we were in a similar position, and we had Breuer, didn't we? That we had from Chelsea. That was last season, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Brozier, Damano, Brozier, Breyer.
Yeah.
The bloke that we the bloke that we chose to pay money for, we could have got off with having him completely free if we had actually decided to play him, which there should have really been no arguments about towards the back end of the season, and we weren't playing for any smart business club at that point when we were safe but not competing for anything. Probably would have just given him the minutes to make sure that we got him for nothing. But outside of that, no, I don't think we signed anyone last January.
It again goes back to what we've been talking about on the last podcast and what we will be talking about in the very near future. It feels like Marco Silva isn't being listened to. The purse strings need to be loosened and he needs to be given signings. And I can't remember off the top of my head last time we did actually sign someone fairly quickly, be it in the summer transfer window or the January transfer window. In answer to your question, Ash, it is extremely, extremely frustrating. It's one of those Fulham things again, unfortunately.
We signed Jimenez pretty quickly. That was because of the immediate rumours of obviously Mitrovic leaving. And we thought it was only going to be a stopgap, and then it ended up being, yeah, this is our striker now. So
fair enough. I stand corrected, but yeah,
that's the only example I can come up with. So I completely understand your point that you've made, but yeah, it's not great business from us in any particular means.
No, it's not, and it's frustrating. And we have been having quite an open conversation around the club at the moment, and whether or not maybe the aspirations of the people non-footballing side are matching up with those footballing side, and we'll see. 11 p.m. Monday night, the transfer window shuts. We have 4 days effectively to sign some players, with a game day involved in between that. Who knows what's going to happen over the weekend, obviously, but someone's got to pull their finger out, whether that be Tony Khan, whoever is actually responsible for transfers. It's concerning. We need to get our finger out. Let's actually talk what we always come here to talk about on our Friday episode, and that is obviously the match preview for this weekend's game. Newcastle away on Saturday is a hard game for us to face. It's a real weird one that both teams' sort of fortunes are completely flipped on the head to what they were when we played each other early on in the season. We went into the game against them earlier on in the season playing really, really well, and they were playing really, really poorly. And coming into this game over the last couple of months, Newcastle have been scintillating, and they've been great to watch, and they've been attacking freely, and we have been not. So it's a bit of a concern, but let's talk about how we feel about going into the game. AJ, I'll ask you the question that I always ask going into this, squad wise for Saturday. Anything you want to see? Any changes you want to see made? What should we expect?
Emile Smith-Rowe needs to be nowhere near that starting lineup. He does not work hard enough against a team like Newcastle who do not stop running. It will be the be-all and end-all of us if we insist on playing someone that doesn't have a similar sort of work ethic in midfield as what Newcastle will put up. Because it doesn't matter how much better technically you might be than what's the midfielder's name, the one that was linked with Manchester United a long time ago, Longstaff. Yeah, not that Longstaff is likely to play over Tonali and the others in midfield, but if he does, even he will outwork Emile Smith-Rowe, regardless of how much better technically Emile Smith-Rowe is. And you can't outplay that Newcastle midfield. You'll need to run as well. And if we don't do that, we're going to be in for a huge shock. So I think it needs to be Lukic, it needs to be Sander Berge, and realistically, as much as he doesn't run much, Kearney does have the technical ability to hold up the ball enough that we can do less running and have less of a concern in midfield and not be as lethargic. Outside of that, Wilson's out, so we're probably going to see Adama start, as much as I would prefer to see Iwobi on the right and Sessegnon on the left, to give us both additional defensive cover against their very quick attacking players, and also give Sessegnon an opportunity to break into the squad and into the box. That, and we know how much he loves playing against Newcastle. Striker wise, I'd prefer Muniz in this one, funnily enough. Just again, work rate, work ethic. Jimenez is brilliant at what he does, but he's older, slower. It's just unfortunate for him that we didn't have him 10 years ago, frankly. outside of that, I don't see many other changes. It's going to be Leno back, our usual back four. Anderson hopefully won't have another stinker, and then we go from there.
Yeah, it's a bit of a difficult one, isn't it? There's been some real calls for people to see Anderson maybe dropped and Diop come back in. Who, to be fair to Diop, every time he's played for us this season, he's played really, really well, and arguably didn't deserve to lose his place when Anderson came back from injury anyway. Anderson for me is a real concern going into this game because, he's called himself this week for us to have more consistency and for players to be more switched on. Which the irony of that conversation coming from him is actually amazing, considering the last few weeks of games we've seen him play where he doesn't look switched on and he doesn't look like he has the confidence that he would normally have. So he's a key one for me going into it.
Looks like
Mozza, this new
weekend.
so
I was going to say, it looks like he spent a couple of weekends playing with Tosin and Adebayo with his recent form.
Yeah, it's not been great. Obviously, Mozza going into this game, Newcastle are very much a different prospect from the team that we played earlier on in the season. They're scoring for fun at the moment. They're a really difficult team to break down and to play against. What do you expect to come from them on Saturday?
An all-out assault, really. I am not hopeful. It's going to be a really tough game. You're away at St James's Park, like you've just said, Ash. They're playing very well, and it just seems like I don't know. I've just not got a good feeling about anything really. It could be a chance for Fulham to sort of show that they can wake up and actually turn up to the game, because what we've seen in the last few performances in the last few weeks, it takes us a while to sort of shift gears up and get into it. I don't know what it will take. Do we need to go a goal down or 2 goals down for us to suddenly start playing like we want to be there? Who knows? But I'm not hopeful for it. I think we're going to be outclassed, but I hope that I'm truly wrong, because I'm often wrong. We'll get to predictions later with my thoughts going into these games when we do the previews. So everything I'm saying now, which might sound quite negative, I truly hope I'm proven wrong, but I'm just not getting a good feeling about it. If I can quickly finish this, I can't really add much more to what AJ said about the lineup, but I don't want to see ESR start. And AJ mentioned about our style of play and how we attack and speed. I think it is really important that we have a Dharma starting. Even if he only gives 50, 60 minutes of firepower, I think it's really important to have him in the starting 11.
Yeah, I think with Adama at the moment, the conversation around him is he better off as a starter? Is he better off as a finisher? We know in football these days that, we have players that like to be known as finishers, in the sense of, you send them on. You don't want Adama running at you with a football anyway, but you really don't want Adama running at you with football when he's just come off the bench and you play 70 minutes of football. No matter how fit you are or how fast you are, that's not a prospect you want running at you. The only problem with Adama is obviously that he's so inconsistent, and it takes like 1 in 10 games for him to actually look like he's a decent footballer, let alone not just a bodybuilder who can sprint, who looks a bit lost and somehow ended up in a changing room. But it's one of those things that we'll see with that. AJ, one of the things we've been semi-joking about over the last couple of months is obviously Fulham's sort of Robin Hood complex. Is this one of those games where we hope that still actually exists, because this is a Newcastle team that we definitely want to be stealing points from rather than giving them to them?
Yeah, you could argue the Manchester United result was another instance of Robin Hood complex, considering their league position. They can claim to be as big as they want, but when you're sat in 15th, it's kind of hard to argue that you need points. As for Newcastle, had you asked me 3 months ago, I would have said this isn't any one take game. It's actually probably one of the games we can go into without the Robin Hood complex being a thing. Now they've got 10 wins in 11 games. This is one of those games where it's a giant killing from us, someone to steal points from. So yeah, that is in the back of my mind. Am I hopeful about it? No. But in the back of my mind that if it comes through, I can scream about Robin Hood again.
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one, isn't it? You know, we look at this Newcastle team. We have to be sort of complimentary to the team that Eddie Howe's managed to build there. He had a bit of a difficult start to the season through injuries and players not being available. You know, and maybe a few players that were misfiring, but he's got him purring a bit at the moment, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And we're going to go through some players to break down the players that we should be concerned about on both sides, like we always do when we look at previews to the game and give our match predictions. But you know, you look at the squad that he has available to him. There are some scary players in sort of almost every position that we know can do some damage against us. And this is, there are a few players on their team that will always come back and bite us on the bum, and they always do. You know, even players
Dan
that don't
Burn hat
start
trick
from the always
incoming.
Dan Burn, Callum Wilson. You know, these players that don't even necessarily play all the time, but we know will do something against us. Harvey Barnes usually does something against us, and let's not even start talking about how good Isak is, because he's been absolutely phenomenal. And there's a reason why he's linked with any club that's willing to spend over £80 million on a striker, because he's absolutely amazing to watch. And we'll talk about that. Let's end the pod like we always do, guys, with our match predictions and players to watch. Mozza, I'm going to start with you on this one, mate. Give us a player to watch on both teams and a scoreline prediction for the game on Saturday, please.
Starting with Newcastle, like you just said, and it's so obvious to say it, but Alexander Isak, I think he's going to cause us problems. He'll be the one to watch for me. On paper, both of us have got great squads, but I just think they've got a little bit more quality than we have at the moment when you compare the squads. And that's me being very, very nice. As for us, I'm usually looking at our players as in ones that could be a threat, but I think I'll be a bit different this week. If we've got Anderson starting, as you've said, Ash, let's see if he starts this game. Let's see if he fully does deserve his place over Diop. I think, that will allow me to make my mind up on that. And very much the same with ESR. If he starts, and if he doesn't, if he doesn't do anything, if he's disappointing, then I think that will really seal his fate for me for, at least the remainder of the season. So ESR and Anderson is my long answer for those. And I don't know why. Score prediction, I've got 3-0 Newcastle in my head. I'm sorry. As always, I'm sorry.
It's fine. This is one that's hard for us to be positive about, I think, especially over recent performances and stuff. So, I don't think there's anyone arguing you with that scoreline. AJ, what about yourself, mate? Give us a player to watch. Give us a scoreline prediction as well, please.
I was going to go Anderson, but that seems too straightforward. And my dear fellow Jack has already mentioned that. So I'm actually going to say Castagna. His last performance was absolutely dreadful, and he was like 30 seconds behind everyone else. It was like he was watching. It was like he was playing the game through a screen, constantly behind on everything he needed to do. It's like it took him an extra 30 seconds to think about everything he needed to do compared to the rest of the squad. And if he performs like that against Newcastle, he's going to get absolutely destroyed by Anthony Gordon, who is and Isak, who both like to occupy that left-hand side. So I can very much see Iwobi being put on our right wing to support Castagna because of that. So my two players to watch would be Iwobi and Castagna. In terms of Newcastle, outside of Anthony Gordon and Isak that we've just mentioned going up against Castagna, I think the midfield is going to be the decision making here. You've got Bruno, you've got Tonali, you've got just bundles and bundles of excellence in that midfield, and I don't think we have any players in our squad that match the caliber of their players in midfield as a whole. Like we've got individuals, like we could say Kearney passes better than any of their midfielders, or Lukic reads the game better than any of their midfielders. But you take Tonali, he's got all of that. You take Bruno, he's got all of that. And it's just really difficult to compete with them in midfield with their work rate. So yeah, those are my two big players to mention. If I have to pick one, I'm gonna go Tonali because of his recent form. And if you're a betting man, I'd bet on them to absolutely slaughter us. And I'm gonna say 5-2 Newcastle.
Ooh.
I'm more interested in where you think our 2 goals are coming from, personally. But hey, it's not a bad chat for me. You know, we're sat here talking about Isak. Isak's the only player really for me that Newcastle we can talk about in terms of watching out for, because he's one of those strikers that we can't be giving too many chances to, because if he misses one, he won't miss the next one. He's just that type of striker, and the form he's in at the moment. You know, he doesn't need much of a sniff in order to find the goal. And, you know, if I was a Newcastle fan, I'd be loving watching him. You know, if you don't want to talk about the obvious in Isak and Gordon, you know, Tonali's a great shout too, in terms of the player he is. But for me, I've got a worrying feeling that Bruno is going to be the player we really need to watch in this game. He had an absolute stinker at the Cottage earlier on in the season. And I've got a feeling that he won't have forgotten how bad he was that day, and he will probably be keen to make up for it, especially against us in this game. And I know from talking to a few of my mates that are Newcastle fans, they are very, very desperate to right the wrongs of the game at the Cottage. So, you know, that'll be an interesting one from them. Oh, from us, you know, I say Alex Iwobi every single week, but Alex Iwobi, obviously, going forward, is probably our most influential player. If he's on it, he's on it. I say Anthony Robertson every week because, you know, he's probably our best attacking sort of threat. But for me, in this game, I've got a real feeling this is going to be one of those games that Sander Berg could really make a difference for us. We need someone who's going to go in and control that midfield if we've got any chance in this game. So he's really going to be on it and have a really, really good day. So I'm going to say Sander Berg, but that's more in hope than expectation, realistically. Scoreline wise, I don't see us really picking anything up in this game. If you're one of the Fulham fans making the journey up to Newcastle this weekend, then, you know, hats off to you. Hats off to you, not just for going to Newcastle, but willing to climb up the 594 flights of stairs up to that away end.
We'll be 3-0 down by the time they get up there.
Yeah, so, you know, good luck to you for it. I just don't see us getting a result in this game. I think we'll be lucky if we only lose by the odd goal. In my head, I've got 3-1 as a scoreline for this game, but who knows? You know, we've gone into many games this season not expecting much from Fulham, and they've really pulled the hat out of the bag when they needed to. Who knows what will come up on Saturday? We're not really expecting much. Maybe this is, you know, Marco's one of those games where Marco proves everyone wrong again. We'll see. We'll hope that the review of this game, what we do on Sunday for Monday, will be really positive. Who knows? We might even lose and just put in a good performance in, which will be, you know, I would accept that. Who knows? But we'll see. Guys, thank you very much for joining me for this preview. We will be reviewing this show, obviously, the game for this for Monday. And we'll see where that goes. Please like and subscribe and comment on the show. If you haven't done so already, please go back and watch our Man United review, because we have an awful lot of that show where we're talking about some existing problems at the club that are in sort of non-footballing side of things. We are planning on doing a special episode on Wednesday next week about that. So please do contact the show with your stories about how ticket prices and matters off of the field are affecting you as a Fulham fan, not just in the case of your ability to afford and to get to games, but just how decisions that are being made and the way things are being done are affecting your, you know, your love for the club and how things are being done. We'll hopefully get a result on Saturday, which might make it a little bit more positive. Who knows? There's always hope, isn't there? Other than that, come on, you Whites, and see you all soon.